One of the reasons why they thought it was so impossible is that if you go back 3.5 years when Donald Trump became president of the United States, Israel and the broader Middle East had very serious problems. Iran and its proxy militias, Hezbollah, Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the different groups, militias they were funding in Syria and Iraq, and also the Houthis in Yemen, were basically flush with cash after $150 billion in sanctions relief was granted and a $1.5 billion in cash was delivered to them. They were also on a glide path to a nuclear weapon, which would have meant permanent instability in this region and perhaps in the entire world. Syria and Iraq were totally destabilized, and ISIS had a caliphate the size of Ohio. Christians were being killed, ethnic cleansing was occurring, and American journalists were being beheaded. Israel's relationship with America was at its lowest point in decades, and the United Nations had just passed a disastrous resolution which put Israel at great risk. When President Trump came into office, everything started to change very quickly. The first thing President Trump did was appoint our ambassador, Ambassador David Friedman, who will go down as the greatest American ambassador to Israel in history. And he has worked very, very hard to work with President Trump and our team to strengthen the bond between America and Israel. President Trump immediately stood up for Israel at the United Nations against the rampant anti-Semitism by injecting common sense and pragmatism into the debate and really pushing things forward. President Trump exited the Iran deal, restored America's sanctions to Iran, greatly weakening their regional adventurism to make Israel and America's Arab partners in the region more secure. And then just 2 weeks ago, Secretary Pompeo announced the snapback of all United Nations sanctions against Iran. President Trump defeated the territorial caliphate of ISIS and eliminated its leader, al-Baghdadi. And then against a lot of objections throughout the world, President Trump kept his promise, and he recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital and quickly moved his embassy here to Jerusalem, where we'll be visiting at some point today. President Trump then recognized the Golan Heights, Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights, and that also was another step towards building Israel's security. And then on January 28th of this year, we released President Trump's Vision for Peace, which is a pragmatic and realistic blueprint for how we can have actual peace in this region. It's based on the facts as they exist, and it shows that the United States understands Israel's security needs, but what this vision showed the world was that Israel was ready to make peace. And the offer that's been made to the Palestinians is a very gracious, realistic offer. And when they are ready to make peace, they now have the opportunity to do so. And that offer showed other people in the region that Israel was serious, and that led to the breakthrough we've had here today.